Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the UCS Prometheus, staring at the empty space where New Geneva should have been sending signals. 3 days ago, the human colony had gone completely silent. No distress calls, no routine check-ins, nothing. Just silence from a world that housed 2 million people. "Take us in slowly," Elena ordered her navigation officer. "Full sensor sweep." The Prometheus was one of humanity's newest battlecruisers, built for deep space exploration and defense. Its hull bristled with railguns, missile tubes, and the latest shield generators Earth could produce. Elena had commanded her for 2 years, but nothing had prepared her for what they found orbiting New Geneva. 3 massive pyramid-shaped ships hung in space above the planet. Each one was easily 10 times the size of the Prometheus. They were made of some kind of dark metal that seemed to absorb light, making them look like holes in space itself. Strange energy patterns danced across their surfaces in colors that hurt to look at directly. "Captain," called out Lieutenant Chen from the science station, "I'm reading massive energy signatures from those ships. The technology is completely unknown. And Captain, there are people down on the planet. They're alive, but something's wrong." Elena moved to look at the readings. The scanner showed the colonists were gathered in huge groups around massive construction sites. They were building something, but the structures made no sense. Giant statues, pyramids, and towers that served no practical purpose. "Hail the lead ship," Elena commanded. The main screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at something that called itself a god. The being was tall and elegant, with pale skin that seemed to glow from within. Its eyes were pools of silver light, and its voice carried an otherworldly echo when it spoke. It wore robes that shifted color like liquid starlight, and an aura of power surrounded it that made even Elena's experienced crew step back from their stations. "I am Hierarch Zephyron of the Etherean Dominion," the being said, its voice filling the bridge with uncomfortable harmonics. "You arrive at a world that now serves the true gods of this galaxy. Your people below have learned their place in the natural order." Elena felt anger rise in her chest. "Those are human citizens under our protection. What have you done to them?" Zephyrin's perfect features showed what might have been amusement. "We have given them purpose. For 50,000 years, hundreds of species across this galaxy have served us willingly. We are immortal, eternal, possessed of powers your primitive minds cannot comprehend. Your people saw our demonstration and wisely chose to worship rather than resist." "Show me," Elena demanded. The alien gestured, and the screen changed to show the planet's surface. Elena watched in horror as her colonists worked like slaves, building massive monuments while Etherean overseers floated above them. But what happened next made her blood run cold. One of the human workers collapsed from exhaustion. An Etherean pointed at the man and energy flowed from its hand. The worker's body convulsed, then stood up again, moving like a puppet. Elena realized with disgust that the aliens were keeping the humans alive through their power, forcing them to work beyond the limits of endurance. "Your demonstration of our benevolence is complete," Zephyron continued. "Now you will land your ship and join your people in service. Resistance is futile. We have ruled this galaxy since before your species learned to make fire. We have crushed 1,000 rebellions and broken the will of countless civilizations." Elena looked around at her crew. She saw fear in their eyes, but also determination. These were good people, trained soldiers and scientists who had sworn to protect human colonies. She thought about the 2 million souls below, forced to build monuments to these false gods. "I have a counter-proposal," Elena said, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her stomach. "Speak, primitive." "Go to hell." Zephyrin's silver eyes flared with anger. "You dare refuse the will of gods, very well. You will learn why every species in this galaxy bows before us." The transmission cut off, and immediately the Prometheus shook under weapons fire. The pyramid ships had opened up with energy beams that bypassed their shields like they weren't even there. Alarms screamed throughout the ship as sections lost power and atmosphere. "Return fire," Elena shouted. "All weapons!" The Prometheus's railguns opened up, hurling tungsten slugs at incredible speed toward the nearest pyramid. To everyone's surprise, the shots punched through the alien ship's hull, causing explosions along its surface. The energy beams targeting them faltered for a moment. "They weren't expecting that," Lieutenant Chen called out. "Their shields seemed designed to stop energy weapons, not kinetic projectiles." "Load nuclear missiles," Elena ordered. "Target their power sources." A spread of nuclear warheads streaked toward the pyramid ships. The aliens tried to shoot them down with energy beams, but the missiles were small and fast. 2 made it through, detonating against the hull of the lead ship. The explosion sent the massive vessel spinning, its perfect formation broken, but Elena knew they couldn't win this fight. More pyramid ships were appearing on long-range sensors, and the 3 already here were adapting to human tactics. Energy shields began forming around their hulls, deflecting the next railgun salvo. "Captain," Chen called out urgently, "I'm getting strange readings from the damaged ship. Their power signatures are fluctuating, and I'm detecting something that looks like data storage systems, massive ones holding incredible amounts of information." Elena filed that information away as another energy beam tore through the Prometheus's armor. Half the ship was now without power, and life support was failing on 3 decks. "All hands, prepare for emergency jump," she commanded. "Chen, can you plant tracking devices on those ships?" "Already done, Captain." Microtransmitters launched during our missile barrage. Elena felt the ship shudder as the jump drive spun up. Around them, the pyramid ships were closing in, their weapons charging for what would surely be killing shots. "Jump!" Space twisted around them, and the Prometheus leaped away from New Geneva at faster-than-light speed. Behind them, the Etherian ships grew small and distant, but Elena knew this was just the beginning. In her ready room an hour later, Elena composed a message to Earth Command. Her hands shook slightly as she typed, but her voice was steady when she recorded the transmission. "This is Captain Vasquez of the UCS Prometheus. We have encountered a hostile alien force calling themselves the Etherian Dominion. They claim to be gods and have enslaved the New Geneva colony. These beings appear to be immortal and possess technology far beyond our current capabilities. However, they can be hurt by kinetic weapons and nuclear explosives." She paused, thinking about Chen's readings and what they might mean. "I believe their immortality may not be natural. Recommend immediate mobilization of all available ships and scientific resources. We are transmitting all sensor data now. The colonists are still alive, and we will not abandon them to these false gods." Elena ended the recording and sent it toward Earth on the fastest courier drone they had. She knew it would take weeks to reach home, but every government and military installation in human space needed to know what was coming. The aliens had made one critical mistake. They had assumed humanity would react like every other species they had conquered over the millennia. They expected fear, submission, and worship. Instead, they had made Elena Vasquez very, very angry. And an angry human, Elena reflected as she looked out at the stars, was a dangerous thing indeed. The Prometheus drifted in deep space, her crew working frantically to repair the damage from their encounter with the Etherian ships. Elena paced the bridge while damage reports flooded in. 3 dead, 12 injured, and half their weapon systems offline. They had hurt the aliens but barely escaped with their lives. "Captain," Lieutenant Chen called from his station, "long-range sensors are picking up movement near New Geneva. The Etherian ships are spreading out and I'm detecting at least 6 more pyramid vessels joining them." Elena stopped pacing. "They're mobilizing. How long until they reach the nearest human colonies?" Chen's fingers flew over his console. "At their current speed, they could hit the Kepler station in 4 days. New Shanghai in 6. The thought of more human colonies falling to those monsters made Elena's stomach clench. She opened a channel to the engine room. "Chief Martinez, how long until we're combat ready?" "Another 8 hours for full repairs, Captain. But we can fight now if we have to." Elena was about to respond when alarms began sounding throughout the ship. On the main screen, 3 pyramid ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel directly in front of them. The lead vessel was the one they had damaged, its hull still showing scorch marks from their nuclear missiles. "They followed us," Elena breathed. "How is that possible?" "Unknown, Captain," Chen replied. "But they're charging weapons." Elena had seconds to make a decision. They could try to run again, but the aliens had clearly found a way to track them. Or they could stand and fight against impossible odds. "All hands to battle stations," she commanded. "This ends here." The Etherian ships opened fire immediately. Energy beams lanced through space, but this time the Prometheus was ready. Elena had ordered the ship to tumble and spin unpredictably, making them a harder target. Most of the shots missed, and those that hit were glancing blows. "Return fire." "Everything we have!" The human battlecruiser's remaining weapons erupted in fury. Railgun slugs and nuclear missiles streaked toward the enemy ships. The aliens had adapted somewhat, but their energy shields were still weak against kinetic weapons. The nearest pyramid shuddered under the impact of tungsten projectiles moving at a significant fraction of light speed, but the Etherians had adapted too. The damaged ship began emitting some kind of energy field, and Elena watched in horror as one of their nuclear missiles simply vanished in mid-flight. "They're neutralizing our warhead somehow," Chen reported. "The energy field is breaking down the nuclear material at the molecular level." Elena gritted her teeth. "Switch to kinetic rounds only, and get me a full scan of those ships. I want to know everything about them." The battle continued for 20 minutes that felt like hours. The Prometheus danced between energy beams, her crew performing miracles of navigation and gunnery. They managed to inflict serious damage on one pyramid ship, but Elena knew they couldn't keep this up much longer. That's when Chen made his discovery. "Captain," he shouted over the sound of explosions, "I've been analyzing the energy signatures from the damaged ship. Their power fluctuations aren't random. They're following a pattern. It's like data transfer protocols." "What are you saying, Lieutenant?" "I think I know how they're immortal, Captain. Look at this." Chen's screen showed a complex readout of energy patterns. Every time one of the aliens gets injured or killed, there's a massive data burst from their ship to storage systems deep in the hull. Then a new body appears from what looks like cloning facilities. Elena stared at the readings as another energy beam barely missed their bridge. "You're saying they're uploading their minds?" "Exactly. They're not naturally immortal at all. They're using technology to transfer their consciousness between bodies. That's why they seem to come back from the dead." The implications hit Elena like a physical blow. If Chen was right, the aliens weren't gods at all. They were just very advanced beings using technology to fake immortality. And if it was technology, can we disrupt it? "Maybe," Chen said, his fingers flying over his controls. "If we could damage the storage systems or interfere with the data transfer process." Another blast shook the ship, and Elena realized they were running out of time. The Prometheus couldn't take much more punishment, and the aliens were closing in for the kill. All remaining missiles target the storage systems Chen identified. Full spread, maximum velocity. A dozen nuclear warheads launched from the Prometheus, followed by every kinetic round they had left. The aliens tried to intercept them, but some got through. Elena watched as explosions bloomed along the hull of the damaged pyramid ship. Suddenly, the ship's energy field flickered and died. On the main screen, Elena could see Etherian figures moving frantically through corridors that were now exposed to space. "Direct hit on their storage systems," Chen reported. "Captain, they're panicking." "I've never seen aliens move with such fear." Elena smiled grimly. For the first time in 50,000 years, the false gods were experiencing mortality. But her victory was short-lived. The other two pyramid ships were moving to protect their damaged sister ship, and more enemy vessels were appearing on long-range sensors. "Time to go," Elena ordered. "But first, Chen, can you plant more tracking devices?" "Already done, Captain. And I'm uploading all our sensor data to a courier probe. Earth Command needs to know what we've learned." The probe launched just as the Prometheus jumped to faster-than-light speed. Behind them, the Etherian ships gave chase, but Elena had chosen her exit vector carefully. They jumped toward the asteroid belt of an uninhabited system, where the Prometheus could hide among the rocks and debris. Hours later, safe in the shadow of a large asteroid, Elena gathered her senior staff in the briefing room. The wall showed damage from the battle, and several seats were empty, casualties of their desperate fight. "What we learned today changes everything," Elena began. "These aliens aren't gods. They're frauds using advanced technology to fake immortality, and that means they can be stopped." Chief Martinez, his arm in a sling from the battle, leaned forward. "So how do we kill something that keeps backing up its brain?" Chen pulled up his analysis on the main screen. "The storage systems are heavily shielded, but they have vulnerabilities. They need regular synchronization between different storage units to prevent data corruption. If we could disrupt that process or destroy enough storage facilities, the false gods become as mortal as anyone else," Elena finished. "The question is, how do we find their main storage facilities?" "The tracking devices might help," Chen suggested. "If we can follow their ships back to their base of operations?" Elena stood up, feeling a plan beginning to form in her mind. It was dangerous, probably suicidal, but it might be their only chance to save not just the human colonies, but every enslaved species in the galaxy. "Gentlemen, we're going to do something that hasn't been done in 50,000 years, she announced. "We're going to hunt gods The room was quiet for a moment, then Chief Martinez grinned. Well, Captain, when you put it like that, how can we refuse? Elena looked around at her battered crew, these brave men and women who had faced impossible odds and lived to tell about it. They were scared. She could see it in their eyes, but they were also determined. They had seen what the aliens did to their colonies, and they weren't going to let it stand. Signal Earth Command, Elena ordered. Tell them we're going to need every ship they can spare. And tell them to start building kinetic weapons. Lots of them. Outside the asteroid, space was dark and empty, but Elena knew the Etherian ships were out there, searching for them. Soon the hunters would become the hunted. The false gods were about to learn what happened when you made humanity angry. 6 months after the first encounter with the Etherians, humanity had transformed from a peaceful exploration force into something the galaxy had never seen before. Organized. Coordinated God Hunters Admiral Sarah Chen, Lieutenant Chen's older sister and now commander of the newly formed Human Liberation Fleet, stood in the war room aboard the flagship UCS Defiance. The walls were covered with star charts showing Etherian positions throughout this sector of the galaxy. Red dots marked confirmed pyramid ship locations, while yellow indicated suspected storage facilities. Report, Admiral Chen commanded as Captain Vasquez entered the room. Elena looked tired but determined. The past months of hit-and-run warfare had taken their toll, but her crew had become experts at hunting aliens who thought themselves untouchable. 3 more storage facilities confirmed destroyed, Elena reported. The Etherians are starting to pull back from Outer Rim colonies. Our tactics are working. The human strategy was simple but effective. Instead of meeting the massive pyramid ships in direct battle, they had divided their forces into small, fast groups. Each group contained 1 or 2 destroyers, equipped with the new kinetic weapons Earth's factories were producing around the clock. Show me the latest intelligence, Admiral Chen requested. Elena activated the holographic display in the center of the room. A 3-dimensional map of the local galactic arm appeared, dotted with lights representing human and alien positions. We've identified 17 major Etherian storage facilities, Elena explained, pointing to various locations. Each one serves as a backup site for multiple pyramid ships. When we destroy a facility, any Etherians whose consciousness was stored there die permanently. The Admiral nodded. And they know we know? Absolutely. The tracking devices we planted have given us incredible intelligence, but they figured out we're following them. Look at this. Elena highlighted several patrol routes on the map. Instead of the confident, spread-out formations the Etherians had used for millennia, their ships now traveled in tight groups, never venturing far from their storage facilities. They're scared, Elena continued. For the first time in 50,000 years, they're experiencing real fear of death. It's affecting their decision-making. Admiral Chen studied the display. Reports from across the galaxy confirmed what Elena was saying. Species that had been enslaved for generations were beginning to report strange behavior from their Etherian overlords. The false gods were becoming paranoid, erratic, sometimes abandoning entire star systems rather than risk permanent death. What about the synchronization cycles Marcus discovered? The Admiral asked. Elena smiled, the first genuine smile Admiral Chen had seen from her in months. That's the best news. Our intelligence suggests they're forced to synchronize their consciousness storage systems every 90 days to prevent data degradation. All storage facilities have to connect to a central hub during this process, which makes them vulnerable. Exactly. If we could identify the central hub and attack during a synchronization cycle, we could wipe out their entire civilization in one blow, Admiral Chen finished. The question is finding it. Before Elena could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. A communications officer called out from across the room. Admiral, priority message from the stealth frigate UCS Ghost. They found something big. The main screen flickered to life, showing the face of Commander Rodriguez, one of Elena's former officers who now led deep reconnaissance missions into Etherian space. Admiral, Captain, Rodriguez began, his voice tight with excitement. We've been tracking the pyramid ships from the Vega system, and they led us to something incredible, transmitting coordinates now. The star map shifted to show a remote system near the galactic core. At its center was a structure that defied belief, an artificial construct the size of a small moon, bristling with energy emissions and surrounded by hundreds of pyramid ships. We think this is it, Rodriguez continued. The central hub. Every Etherean ship in 3 sectors has been converging on this location over the past week. If our intelligence about the synchronization cycle is correct, it's happening here in 72 hours. Admiral Chen felt her heart racing. This was the opportunity they had been waiting for, a chance to end the war in a single decisive strike. But the defenses around the hub looked impossible to breach. "How many ships are we looking at?" she asked. "At least 300 pyramid vessels plus the hub itself, which appears to be heavily armed." "Admiral, there's something else. We're detecting massive energy signatures that match what we found at enslaved worlds. I think they're storing the consciousness of their entire species in that thing." Elena stepped forward. "Commander, can you get us detailed scans of the hub structure?" "Negative, Captain. We're at maximum sensor range now, and if we get any closer, they'll detect us. But I can tell you this. The energy patterns we're seeing match exactly with the storage systems you've been targeting." Admiral Chen turned to her staff officers. "How many ships can we muster for an assault?" 47 vessels, including the Defiance," came the reply. "But Admiral, against 300 pyramid ships, and it's suicide," Admiral Chen finished. "Unless we're very smart about it." Elena had been studying the tactical display, and now she looked up with a dangerous glint in her eyes. "Admiral, what if we don't try to fight all those ships? What if we make them fight each other?" "Explain." Elena manipulated the holographic display showing the hub and its defending fleet. "The synchronization process requires all consciousness storage systems to be connected. That means every Etherean ship has to lower its defenses and link to the central hub. They'll be vulnerable for the entire duration of the process, but they'll still have 300 ships between us and the target. Not if we make them think we're attacking from multiple directions." Elena grinned. "I've been analyzing their tactical responses over the past 6 months. The Ethereans are brilliant at technology and strategy, but they have one weakness. They've never faced an opponent who thinks like humans do." Admiral Chen raised an eyebrow. "Meaning?" "They expect logical, predictable tactics. They think any sane species would either surrender or fight conventionally. They've never encountered pure human stubbornness and creativity." Elena began outlining her plan. It was audacious, risky, and probably impossible. But as she spoke, Admiral Chen began to smile. It was exactly the kind of plan that might work against opponents who had never faced anything like it. "You realize this has almost no chance of success," Admiral Chen said when Elena finished. "Yes, ma'am, but if we do nothing, they'll complete their synchronization and probably figure out how to counter our kinetic weapons. This might be our only shot." Admiral Chen looked around the room at her officers. She saw the same determination in their eyes that had driven Elena to defy the Ethereans in the first place. These people had watched their colonies enslaved and their people forced to worship false gods. They were ready to risk everything for a chance at victory. "Send word to all ships," Admiral Chen commanded. "Operation Deicide begins in 60 hours. And someone get me a direct line to Earth Command. If this works, they'll want to know." If it doesn't, ma'am," an officer asked. "If it doesn't, make sure they know we went down fighting. No human kneels to false gods." As the fleet began preparations for what might be humanity's final battle, Elena returned to the Prometheus. Her crew was already loading the new quantum-enhanced kinetic rounds Earth scientists had developed specifically for this mission. Looking out at the stars, Elena thought about the 2 million colonists still enslaved on New Geneva. Soon they would either be free or they would be avenged. Either way, the Ethereans were about to learn that some prey fought back. The human fleet hung in space 50 light-years from the Etherean hub, making final preparations for what everyone knew was likely a suicide mission. Elena stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, watching her crew work with the calm efficiency of people who had accepted they might not live to see another day. "Quantum virus is loaded and ready," reported Dr. Marcus Chen, who had been transferred to Elena's ship specifically for this mission. His sister had wanted the family's expertise close to the action. "The delivery system is crude, but it should work if we can get close enough to the hub," Elena nodded. The virus was humanity's secret weapon, a piece of code designed to corrupt the Etherean consciousness storage systems. But it had to be uploaded directly to the central hub during the synchronization process, when all the storage systems were connected. "Captain," called Lieutenant Torres from the communication station, "Admiral Chen is requesting final confirmation from all ships." Elena opened the fleet channel. 47 human vessels appeared on her screen. representing every military ship Earth could spare. Destroyers, frigates, cruisers, and the flagship Defiance, all bristling with the kinetic weapons that had proven effective against Etherian technology. "This is Admiral Chen," came the voice from the flagship. "In 30 minutes, we jump to the target system. Everyone knows the plan. Strike Teams Alpha through Delta will create diversions at the cardinal points around the hub. Strike Team Echo, led by Captain Vasquez, will attempt to penetrate the defensive perimeter and deliver the virus payload." Elena switched to a private channel with the Admiral. "Sarah, you know this is probably a one-way trip for my team." "I know, Elena. I also know that if anyone can pull this off, it's you and your crew. You've been hunting these things longer than anyone. Just promise me that if we fail, you'll keep fighting. Don't let humanity kneel to these false gods. You have my word." The connection closed and Elena looked around her bridge. These people had followed her through 6 months of desperate warfare, had trusted her judgment when she decided to defy beings that claimed to be gods. They deserved better than a suicide mission. "All hands, this is the captain," Elena announced over the ship's intercom. "In a few minutes, we're going to attempt something that has never been done in galactic history. We're going to attack the gods in their most sacred place and try to kill immortal beings. I won't lie to you, our chances are not good. But I want you to remember something. Every species in this galaxy has bowed to the Etherians for 50,000 years. Every species except one. Today, we show them what humans are made of." The countdown reached 0, and 47 human ships jumped to faster than light speed. They emerged from hyperspace into a scene of impossible grandeur. The Etherian hub hung in space like an artificial moon, its surface covered in crystalline structures that pulsed with inner light. Hundreds of pyramid ships surrounded it in perfect formation, their dark hulls creating a defensive shell around their most precious facility. "My God," whispered someone on the bridge. "Look at the size of that thing." The hub was enormous, easily 20 times larger than Earth's moon. Energy patterns danced across its surface as the synchronization process began. Elena could see streams of data flowing between the pyramid ships and the central structure, the consciousness of an entire species being backed up and updated. "Strike Teams Alpha through Delta. Begin your attack runs," Admiral Chen commanded. Immediately, 36 human ships split into 4 groups and accelerated toward different points around the hub. The Etherian response was swift and overwhelming. Energy beams lanced out from hundreds of pyramid ships, turning space into a deadly light show. Elena watched on her tactical display as the diversionary forces engaged the enemy. The human ships were fast and maneuverable, darting between the massive pyramids like fighters harassing battleships. But they were outnumbered 10 to 1, and ships began disappearing from the display with alarming frequency. "Strike Team Echo, you have an opening," Admiral Chen transmitted. "The enemy is repositioning to engage the diversionary forces." "This is your chance." Elena gripped her command chair. "All ships follow the Prometheus. Maximum acceleration toward the hub." 11 ships, all that remained of Strike Team Echo, accelerated toward their target. The Etherian defenders were indeed repositioning, but not all of them. Dozens of pyramid ships turned to intercept the new threat, their weapons charging. "Evasive maneuvers," Elena ordered. "Don't let them get a clean shot." The next few minutes were pure chaos. Elena's ship twisted and spun through space as energy beams tried to find their mark. Around her, other human vessels performed similar dances with death. The destroyer UCS Vengeance took a direct hit and exploded in a ball of fire. The frigate UCS Relentless lost half her hull but kept flying. "We're not going to make it," called out the helmsman. "Too many ships in our way." Elena studied the tactical display. The Etherian defenders were forming an impenetrable wall between her force and the hub. At their current rate of attrition, Strike Team Echo would be wiped out before they got within weapons range. That's when she made a decision that would have horrified any military strategist. "All ships, this is Vasquez. Change of plan. We're going to surrender." "Captain?" Dr. Chen stared at her in shock. "Trust me," Elena said, then opened a channel to the Etherian fleet. "This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the human fleet. We surrender. We request transport to your hub for formal submission to your authority." The response came from Hierarch Zephyrin himself, the same being they had first encountered at New Geneva. His perfect features showed satisfaction and contempt. "So the primitive humans finally understand their place. You will land in the designated bay and present yourselves for judgment. Resistance will result in immediate termination." Elena smiled grimly. "Understood. We're coming in." As the human ships altered course toward the hub, Dr. Chen leaned close to Elena. "Captain, please tell me you have a plan." "They expect us to be defeated," Elena whispered back. "They think we're beaten and broken. But the virus doesn't need to be delivered by weapons. It just needs to get into their computer systems." "You mean, if they capture us and take us inside the hub during the synchronization process, we can upload the virus directly from our portable computers. They'll never see it coming because they think we've given up." The human ships were guided to a massive docking bay inside the hub. As they landed, Elena could see Etherian soldiers waiting to take them prisoner. The beings looked exactly like the gods they claimed to be. Tall, graceful, radiating an aura of power and immortality. But Elena knew better now. Under all that grandeur, they were just advanced beings using technology to fake godhood. And like any technology, it could be hacked. "Remember," Elena told her crew as they prepared to disembark, "act defeated. Let them think they've won. But be ready when I give the signal." The airlock opened and the humans were marched into the heart of the hub. Elena carried a small device disguised as a personal communicator, but which actually contained Dr. Chen's quantum virus. Around them, the hub's interior was a marvel of alien architecture, vast chambers filled with crystalline storage matrices, each one containing the consciousness of thousands of Etherians. They were brought before a gathering of hierarch-level Etherians. Being so advanced they barely looked physical anymore. Zephyron stood at their center, his silver eyes gleaming with triumph. 50,000 years, he began, his voice echoing through the chamber. 50,000 years since any species dared to resist us. You have fought bravely, humans, but futilely. Now you will witness the power of true gods as we complete our eternal synchronization." Elena looked around the chamber. Every storage system in the Etherian Empire was connected to this room. Streams of data flowed like rivers of light between the crystalline matrices. If the virus worked, it would spread to every facility, every ship, every backup system the false gods had built. "You want to see our power?" Zephyron continued. "Watch as we process your primitive minds into our storage systems. You will serve us for eternity, your consciousness trapped in endless worship." That was Elena's cue. She activated the device in her pocket and felt it begin transmitting the quantum virus into the hub's computer networks. "Actually," Elena said, standing up straighter, "I have a better idea. How about you go to hell?" Zephyron's perfect face twisted with rage. "You dare speak so to gods?" Elena smiled, thinking of all the enslaved colonies, all the species forced to worship these frauds. "You're not gods. You're just scared mortals with fancy technology. And your technology is about to fail." The virus was spreading now, invisible and unstoppable. Soon, the false gods would discover what it truly meant to be mortal. For a moment, nothing happened. Zephyron and the other hierarchs looked at Elena with the same expression of divine arrogance they had worn for 50,000 years. The synchronization process continued around them, streams of data flowing between the crystalline storage matrices like rivers of liquid light. Then the first scream echoed through the chamber. It came from one of the lower-ranking Etherians, a being that had been overseeing the data transfer process. Its perfect, glowing form suddenly convulsed, silver eyes flickering like a broken display. The scream that emerged from its throat was not the harmonious voice of a god, but the raw, terrified cry of something experiencing mortality for the first time. "What is happening?" Zephyron demanded, his own voice losing its otherworldly echo. Around the chamber, more Etherians were beginning to show signs of distress. Elena watched with grim satisfaction as Dr. Chen's quantum virus spread through their systems. The code was elegant in its simplicity. Instead of trying to destroy the consciousness storage matrices, it was doing something far more cruel. It was transferring every stored Etherian mind into temporary biological bodies, bodies that would age, feel pain, and eventually die. "You wanted to know what gods feel like?" Elena asked as chaos erupted around them. "Try being mortal." The transformation was horrifying and beautiful to watch. Etherians who had existed as pure consciousness for millennia were suddenly thrust into flesh that could suffer. Their perfect glowing forms flickered and solidified into something more recognizably biological. They stumbled and fell as they experienced physical sensation for the first time in eons. But the real terror was psychological. These beings had not faced the possibility of true death for 50,000 years. The sudden knowledge that they could die, really die with no backup, no resurrection, No immortal continuation broke their minds. Zephyron himself was changing, his silver eyes becoming merely metallic rather than pools of light. He looked down at his hands as if seeing them for the first time, watching as age lines appeared on skin that had been perfect moments before. "Impossible," he whispered, his voice now entirely human in its frailty. "We are eternal. We are gods. You were frauds," Elena corrected, "and now you're just mortals like everyone else you enslaved." Throughout the hub, alarms were beginning to sound. The massive facility shuddered as its consciousness-driven systems began to fail. Without immortal minds to guide them, the complex technologies that had maintained Etherian dominance for millennia were shutting down. Dr. Chen pulled out his scanner and confirmed what Elena hoped was happening. The virus has spread to every connected system. Every Etherian consciousness in the galaxy is being downloaded into mortal bodies. Their backup systems are corrupted beyond repair. Around them, the former gods were experiencing their first taste of true panic. Some were trying to access control panels with fingers that now trembled with age and fear. Others were simply sitting on the floor, staring at their hands as they aged in real time, processing the reality of mortality. Zephyron tried to approach Elena, but stumbled as his legs betrayed him. The graceful movement that had characterized the Etherians was gone, replaced by the clumsy motions of beings unaccustomed to physical limitations. "What have you done?" he demanded, his voice cracking with an emotion he had not felt in millennia: fear. "I've given you a gift," Elena replied. "The gift of being truly alive. For the first time in 50,000 years, your life has meaning because it can end." The hub continued to shake around them, as systems failed throughout the massive structure. On Elena's communicator, she could hear Admiral Chen trying to establish contact. "Elena, are you there? Something's happening to the Etherian fleet. Their ships are losing power and going dark." Elena activated her device. "We're here, Admiral." The virus worked. The false gods are false no more. Through the chamber's vast windows, Elena could see the pyramid ships that had surrounded the hub. One by one, their lights were going out as their immortal crews experienced mortality and madness. Ships that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia were becoming dark, drifting hulks as their operators collapsed under the weight of sudden mortality. But the most dramatic change was happening to the Etherians themselves. Elena watched as beings who had ruled the galaxy began to age rapidly, their consciousness transfer process apparently accelerating the biological aging they had avoided for so long. Years seemed to pass in minutes as their bodies caught up with the time their minds had existed. Some of the younger Etherians, if such a term could be applied to immortal beings, were adapting better to their new mortality. But they looked lost, confused, like children suddenly thrust into an adult world they did not understand. Zephyron, however, was aging faster than the others. Elena realized that as one of the oldest hierarchs, his consciousness had been stored the longest. The biological body the virus had created for him was trying to match his true age, and the result was devastating. "Please," he gasped, his once perfect face now lined with millennia of age. "I don't want to die. I'm not ready. We were eternal. We were supposed to be eternal." Elena felt a moment of pity for the being that had once threatened to enslave her species. "That's what makes life precious," she said gently. "The fact that it ends gives it meaning. Every mortal species in the galaxy understands this. Now you do too." Zephyron collapsed, his ancient consciousness finally experiencing what every other being in the galaxy had always known: the fear and inevitability of death. Around him, other hierarchs were falling as well, their bodies unable to contain minds that had existed for longer than most civilizations. The chamber's great windows suddenly cracked as the hub's structural integrity began to fail. Elena realized they needed to evacuate before the entire facility collapsed. "All human personnel, this is Captain Vasquez. Return to your ships immediately. The hub is collapsing." Her crew, who had been standing guard over their captured captors, quickly began moving toward the docking bay. Some of the younger Etherians tried to follow them, their new mortality making them desperate to survive. Elena paused at the chamber's entrance, looking back at the beings who had once terrorized the galaxy. Most of the ancient hierarchs were dead or dying, their minds unable to cope with sudden mortality. The survivors huddled together like frightened children, no longer the gods they had pretended to be. "Captain," Dr. Chen called. "We need to go now." Elena ran toward their ship as the hub continued to collapse around them. Behind her, she could hear the cries of former gods experiencing fear for the first time in 50,000 years. The Prometheus launched just as the central chamber collapsed entirely. Around them, the pyramid ships that had once inspired terror across the galaxy drifted powerless in space, their crews either dead or too traumatized by mortality to function. "This is Admiral Chen to all ships," came the voice over the communication system. "The mission is complete. The Etherian threat has been neutralized. All ships return to Earth immediately. We have a galaxy to liberate." Elena stood on her bridge watching the massive hub break apart in silent explosions. Somewhere in that debris were the remains of beings who had ruled the galaxy for longer than human civilization had existed. They had called themselves gods, had enslaved countless species, had demanded worship from beings they considered inferior. Now they were gone, reduced to the mortality they had tried so hard to escape. "Captain," Lieutenant Torres called from the communication station, "we're receiving signals from across the galaxy. The enslaved species are rising up. Without their immortal overlords, the Etherian Empire is collapsing." Elena smiled. "And the human colonies?" "New Geneva is reporting successful liberation. The colonists are free." Elena thought about the 2 million people who had been forced to build monuments to false gods. They were free now, free to build their own future instead of serving beings who had forgotten what it meant to be alive. As the human fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed, Elena composed a message to be broadcast across the galaxy. "To all species who suffered under Etherian rule, the false gods are dead. Their immortality was a lie built on technology and fear. They are mortal now, as mortal as any of us. The galaxy is free to determine its own destiny. No being, no matter how advanced, has the right to rule over others through force and deception. Today we learned that even gods can be taught to die." Elena ended the recording and looked out at the stars. Humanity had done something unprecedented in galactic history. They had killed gods and lived to tell about it. But more importantly, they had proven that courage, ingenuity, and the simple refusal to kneel could overcome any tyrant, no matter how powerful they claimed to be. The age of false gods was over. The age of freedom had begun.